Now, me not being American, I've never heard about this story before, but let me just say, holy shit! My name is Daidarius and welcome to the review of McMillions. Yes, that is right, I am back to review other things than just manga and show my manga collection. Not that I don't mind doing those videos, but it's been so long since I've reviewed other stuff. And don't you worry, there is other reviews coming out very soon, but it's not gonna be about cinema movies, unfortunately. We have to wait for those a bit. So McMillions is an HBO documentary consisting of 6 episodes, which each is roughly 50 minutes to an hour long. Now, there's not much I can say about the quote-unquote plot in this documentary, but I can give you the setup / the premise. So back in 1989, McDonald's hired a company to do some promotion for them, and they came up with the Monopoly McDonald's Edition game. If you're an American, you might have played this. I mean, I believe they are still running a version of this game, but I'm not quite sure. In this McDonald's Monopoly game, you will get some pieces for this game every time you bought stuff at McDonald's. And if you got enough pieces, you will able to win some prizes. It's kind of the same as buying property in the actual Monopoly game. However, there were few instant win prizes that will give out hundreds of dollars, and there was even $1 million instant prize in this competition. And you might think to yourself, so what? It's just a competition. Well, turns out that for the last 12 years, and in addition, the 25 winners of this instant $1 million prize has not been random. It has actually been decided beforehand who's gonna win. But before you get angry at McDonald's, McDonald's did not know that this was going on. It is actually such a big fraud that the FBI gets to investigate this whole ordeal. And again, you might think to yourself, why would the FBI investigate some fraud in a McDonald's meal game? Well, we are talking about above $25 million technically stolen from McDonald's. So yeah, it's a big fraud, it's a big money scheme, so it needs to be investigated and it needs to put a stop to it so McDonald's doesn't lose money to people who not deserve of winning those money. Does that make sense? Now, I can't really go into much more detail about the story because you need to see this. Now, you might know the story behind this documentary. I mean, you might remember it being on the news, the part of it that actually was on the news, but I'm telling you, there's much more to this story than you probably know already. Now, what I like about this documentary is, first off, how it handles its subject, because often a documentary has a hidden agenda. It wants to show you a specific side or point of a given case. Now, Michael Moore, for example, is infamous on painting the subject in a specific color, so you only kind of see the subject that he's actually making a documentary about in his point of view. He's not being neutral. Here, however, it does for the most part seem like that the creators behind this documentary actually wanted to be neutral. They didn't want to impose their point of view of this case onto you, the audience, but instead just letting all who was involved in this case tell the story for you, and then they just provide reenactment of those stories. For example, they interviewed the FBI agents that were on the case. Let me just say, the first FBI agent that you're gonna see in this documentary, he's fucking hilarious. I love him. I love his character, his charisma, everything, and the way he tells stories, and how he kind of shows himself as being the real life Jake Peralta from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm telling you, it is hilarious. But nevertheless, let's the FBI agents tell their side of the story with the investigation, what they went through, what they found out, and how they handle it, and how they try to go after these criminals. But it also shows you some of the $1 million winners. It shows you some of those who worked at McDonald's, some of those who worked at the marketing company, and it also interviews some of the criminals that has something to do with this whole ordeal, which I actually liked and appreciate, because that means you get the whole story, and at no point is there any voiceover from the documentary creators. The only time you actually hear them is if they have a reaction of what one of the people that they're interviewing is saying, or if they go, so does that mean this, or does that mean that, or anything. But it is very few times that we actually hear some of the creators. Otherwise, just these people being interviewed that provides the voiceover, and then they have created these reenactments so you can kind of better picture of what was happening at that time. And it works extremely well. They find some really good lookalikes of these people that they're interviewing, and still trying to obscure the camera angles enough so you can't clearly see their faces. Now, second thing I really appreciate about this documentary is how it tells its story, how it tells the story that's happening. Because more than anything else, we just get the information presented to us, how the FBI actually came across the information. So at the beginning we have nothing, and then slowly we get to know more and more. And the more you get to know, not only becoming more interested in what's slowly becoming one of the most interesting subjects ever, but you also get presented for, I will say, plot twists. Yeah, because this case takes a lot of sharp turns, and when you have these sharp turns, that is where the creators of this documentary have a reaction when they're interviewing people. It is actually quite funny, because probably at the same time that they have those reactions, then I had the same reaction out loud. But you also try to piece together the pieces in this puzzle to find out what really happened, and then at the end of this documentary, you think I have the whole thing mapped out, and then you just throw in a last curveball that just beautifully circles back to the beginning of this documentary, to what started the whole case, and then just hits you with another twist that makes sense when you're presented with it, but it's clearly that the documentary creators did not know this before. It was actually told by the ones they were interviewing. So that's some great fucking editing and also just creation of this documentary. I loved it. It is easy to follow, and you get kind of a view back the curtain of how the FBI works on certain aspect, because they are keeping some information to themselves, but you do get to see how they would tackle a case like this, and also why they are taking it so seriously. Now I could probably go on and on what I liked about this documentary, how it is told, how it is framed, how it is handling its subject, how it shows respect for everyone they are interviewing. They're not trying, especially with the criminals, they're not trying to shun them and make them regret what they did. They're actually just sitting there and just neutrally making them speak their story, their side of the story. So it feels like that they feel that they're more freely to say their point of view and not feeling sorry for themselves, because that's not the point of view you want. You just want their side without any influence, and I appreciate that. I also like the way that the episode was structured. I kinda hated that every episode ended with a cliffhanger, because that does mean that you need to see the next episode. But luckily, all 6 of them is on HBO, so there's that. The only nitpick, and I don't even want to call it a nitpick, the only downside of this is that at the end, the brain behind the operation didn't want to give an interview for this documentary series, which is unfortunately, because it would just been the perfect icing on the cake if we could have ended with the culprit's point of view. But they weren't able to do it, so I won't put it against the documentary, but it was just something that I wished for, but that's how it is. All I can say is that this is probably one of, if not the best documentary I have watched ever. But then again, I haven't watched that many, and most of the documentaries that I have watched is some nature, animal things, and they are often, just very interesting facts and extremely impressive images going along with it. So, I will say that McMillions, it is an epic masterpiece. So McMillions, have you seen it? What did you think about it? If you haven't, do consider, at least if you don't have HBO, to just get a free trial and check that out. as well as one of the other series that I'm gonna review later on this channel. But holy shit, documentary, holy shit, a story even. It was actually funny because I was just getting recommended this series by a Twitch streamer and YouTuber called The Grand Pooh Bear, who in one of his videos just kind of nonchalantly talks about this series, and more specifically this FBI guy, and just said that we should watch it. And then my girlfriend and I didn't have anything to watch that night, so I just thought, why don't we just try the first episode, see if it's worth anything, and we ended up binging the whole damn thing. Holy shit. So, McMillions, have you seen it? What do you think about it? And do you remember this story, or have you ever played the game? Because I'm quite curious, I've never played the game before, again, since I'm not an American. But whatever you think, comment below and me your thoughts. And as always, until I see you next video, remember to stay awesome. Bye! I'm actually hungry. Should I get some McDonald's?